still. We laugh, we learn, we go too deep. Sometimes the tea's too hot to keep, but we're here, no shame, just chill. Grab a snack, let's talk what's real. Welcome to the Feel and Spill, where the combo's hot and the vibe is real. We fill your plate and spill the tea with honesty, heart, and a little therapy. Yeah, come hang for a while. It's all love, all laughs, all style. This Feel and Spill.
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the Fill and Spill podcast. You already know us. I'm OG. Here's I'm that Beth, and we have the lovely Mama D here with us. Today's guest is Megan. And Megan, would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Megan Davis, and I'm very happy to be joining you all today. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a perinatal mental health certified clinician. So essentially that's fancy language for I'm a mental health therapist that primarily works with moms and women who are either trying to conceive all the way through perimenopause.
Oh, nice. So yes, so today is going to be a special day because we're going to talk about Mother's Day and also other topics. Any comments that you guys have, please comment below, or any questions, and take it away, Beth.
So, Megan, tell us a little bit about what you want to talk about today with Mother's Day.
Yeah. So Mother's Day, I think can bring up a lot of different feelings for moms. And something that I wanted to talk about that I think is a little bit less commonly known is the concept of matrescence and what that actually means. And we can start off with that and kind of go from there.
Awesome. Right, we're willing to learn something new today.
Yeah, it's something I don't even know. Not a term that's usually used.
Never before, so enlighten us.
Yeah. So matrescence is something that I think is maybe kind of like up and coming in terms of like a term for really kind of identifying just all of the shifts and changes that come up with motherhood. And so it's actually a term that was, coined by an anthropologist back in the 70s. Her name was Dana Raphael. And so I guess it's been a concept since then, but nobody ever really has talked about it until maybe kind of the last 3 to 5 years. But really what it is just acknowledging that postpartum, or the period after having a baby, isn't just like the first year after. It's kind of like essentially for the rest of a woman's life, and that there are so many different just cool like brain changes in a mom's body, but there are also a lot of changes in terms of like hormones and identity. That's something that I tend to work with clients around a lot of, I was this person, maybe I had this career, and then now I'm a mom, and that feels like all consuming. So again, those changes in identity, and then just really a lot of changes in priorities. And all of this is within the context of like society and our culture, and what society and culture tells us is, what a good mom is, or what a mom should be. So there are all these different, again, kind of like layers and changes that a mom is working through kind of just in that initial postpartum period after having a baby, but also for the years kind of far after that.
It's very systematic, almost.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Being a mom, I think like after having a baby, you kind of go into like this shock mode, like, okay, like especially like first time moms, like you don't know what you're doing, and now you have like something that you have to take care of, like a whole person that you have to take care of, and it's like, okay, where do you begin? So definitely like a support system would usually helps with postpartum depression, things like that. So yeah, like that's interesting. I kind of like that idea.
Mhm.
Learned a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, and they kind of liken matrescence to like all the changes that come up with adolescence. Like if you think about like, when we were teenagers, our bodies were changing, like hormones were like all out of whack. Our brains were changing. Our relationships with our parents were changing. Like we were becoming more, you know, individuals and kind of focusing on social relationships. And so, again, like with adolescence, it can throw a lot of people off. And it's just such a time that's not just like 1 year, it's over a period of time that really so many changes can happen. And so it's kind of like, yeah, adolescence all over again, but then you also have a baby to take care of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, then, and also too, right? Like I think most of us would say at some point in life we are a child twice and we're an adult once, right? Because even as we grow older, we go through, if you experience postpartum and then, right, we go through menopause and then we become adults and, we start being more limited how we take care of ourselves and all of those things. So I think there are many cycles of life that we have to go through for sure.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And OJ, to your point, having a support network is so important just with all of these changes because they can really like throw us off balance. And a lot of times the changes aren't really kind of discussed, on social media and in movies and, TV shows. Motherhood is really portrayed as like this really kind of like glorified thing, which, there are great aspects of it, but it can also, again, have lots of challenges and it's hard to know what to expect or you can't really prepare for it until you're in it. And so having others who have either kind of like been through it or going through it can be so helpful in just kind of normalizing that like, yeah, like this is lots of parts are difficult.
I know there's like a lot of comparison between stay-at-home moms and working moms, and that's like a battle. It seems like it's a battle. Media, like, like one is not better than the other in that aspect, but you got the working mom that feels guilty because she's not there all the time and somebody else is raising her child, like her mother-in-law or parents, grandparents, things like that. And then you have the side of the single parent, like the moms that are not working, that are really going through it because they feel so isolated. What are your thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I like to think of it as all moms are working moms in some way. It's like maybe some are getting paid and others are not getting paid. I can't remember the exact statistic, but stay-at-home moms, it's kind of like the equivalent of having like 1.5, 2 full-time jobs that they're not necessarily getting paid for. So, when people say, one's better than the other, try to kind of like pit moms against each other. I think that's where really kind of taking a really big step back systemically and looking at societally, what is valued. Oftentimes productivity and money are really valued. That, kind of this concept of matrescence really fits into that as well, because again, taking a look at the larger context, every family has their own needs and needs to make the decision that's best for them. And, you might have a mom who has worked really hard to get at a certain place in her career. And unfortunately, if she takes a lot of time off, she might not be able to come back, at that level and have the same opportunity as maybe a counterpart who isn't a mother. But then also on the flip side of that, it does mean that she's kind of missing out on, kind of being with her child, which I see a lot of guilt around that.
I think that's a very valid point, because also, right, like, yes, there is a lot of value around, money and time and things like that. But, let's put that aside. Let's talk about, how do moms actually contribute, whether they're working a job or whether they're doing it from home and being a stay-at-home mom. And both of them have shame and guilt. Even my stay-at-home moms do. It doesn't change the fact that they have both of those emotions. So we can't really compare one to the other.
Right.
But often, of course, society does, right?
Can't
Yeah.
compare, because life is not perfect.
Well, yeah, of course.
Life is just not perfect. There's going to be
Right.
times where, you have to make a hard choice. You may be able to stay at home financially with your kid. You may have to work. Is that time lost with your kid? Yes, of course it is. But it's all, that's the choice that you're making for your child. So I think it has negatives and positives to both. No, neither one is better or worse than the other. It's just what that parent has to choose to do. Not everybody wants to work and leave their kids, at daycare, at home. No, nobody. I really can't say any mother really wants to do that, but some have no choice. They have to do that.
Right. Exactly.
And look at it too, right? Like, if they do have a counterpart, right? Maybe it is that their partner goes to work while the other one stays at home, or has a good enough job to do that, right? And they've already agreed on both of those fronts to do that. Vice versa, too, right? Stay-at-home dads also do the same thing. It just really depends on the family itself and their dynamic.
Right.
And what are, I think it all boils down to how, like, for speaking of my household, basically, because I'm a working mom. I work a full-time job, so does my husband, and we have our own business. So it's like, for us, we're more so concentrated on building generational wealth in the long term. So that way we can be, maybe it'll take a little bit of time for us to retire at an early age to have more time with our son. But right now we're just putting it as a sacrifice just to, like, grow a little bit and grow our financial status. So that way it will be easier for us to make the time for him, or at least free me, so I don't have to work. And I can just focus on my son.
Yeah.
It is hard for working moms. Like, I feel like when somebody else is raising your kid and then your kid is not listening to you per se, and just listens to the other person, and it's like, it kind of does get to you as a mom, because you feel like, okay, you're so exhausted from working all day that you can't, you don't have the patience, just like the other person does, to deal with your kid. And that's why sometimes, like, my kid doesn't listen to me, because he more so listens to his grandmother, which is fine. But, like, it is a struggle, like, for somebody like that, as a mom.
But let's also talk about it in the context of, it's not just a struggle as a mom, it's also a struggle as a wife.
Yeah.
Not
doing, but you're doing enough, but you feel like something's missing. Like, okay, why is he not listening to me? Or why is my child, like, missing me? But it tends to get frustrating, I guess. So for those who are working moms. But
it's because you have to be the parent.
Yeah.
You have to enforce it. You have to make them respect you. You have to.
But then you coming off too strong sometimes.
No, not as a parent. No. Absolutely not.
Sometimes you come off too strong on him. And I'm like, how though?
No.
That's me being a parent, or that's me doing my due diligence. As he's like, yeah, but it comes off as you ordering him, not you asking him. And I'm like, okay, then I had to take a step back and think about that. Like, okay, maybe he is right. Maybe I'm doing something wrong that makes him not listen to me.
I never had My children listen to me. I never had that problem. I really didn't. And I was a working mother. I never had it. And to this day, I don't have it. My kids respect me. I respect them. We have a great relationship. So
She lives with
that I'm right.
We live together.
We live together.
There is a dynamic, right?
Yeah.
Like it, and it's going to happen. And you're also going to test your parents at times in your
course.
life.
Mhm.
I do want to go back just a little bit because I do think it's not really talked about enough. You mentioned like talking about postpartum with women.
Mhm.
How, I guess, let's talk about some of the the normalizing signs of what it looks like when a woman is going through postpartum, because I don't think those signs are talked about enough for a lot of women.
Yeah. And I think even just using the term like postpartum, most people would probably think, okay, postpartum depression. But even, postpartum is a period of time.
Yes.
When we think about medically, it's like the first year after having a baby. But
Yeah.
again, as we know, like it's not like at the year mark, things just like change all of a sudden and you're not postpartum. But yeah, postpartum is that period of time after having a baby. And there's some normal aspects to it of not sleeping great and all the hormonal shifts and changes, which, a lot of people call like the baby blues. So within that first few weeks after having a baby, there can be a lot of like tearfulness, crying spells, just kind of like feeling like, what the heck just happened? Like, how am I supposed to raise this baby? But usually over, the course of a few weeks, that should improve. And if it doesn't, that's oftentimes when we start kind of thinking a little bit more about like what is more kind of like clinically up, so that maybe somebody does have like postpartum depression, or there's also postpartum anxiety, postpartum OCD, postpartum psychosis. So it's not just postpartum depression. And something that you may not know is that also fathers or non-birthing partners can experience postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, OCD, and all of that as well.
Mhm.
So it's not just confined to someone who is birthing a baby. There's also research that shows in couples who have adopted babies, like there can still be some of these postpartum experiences that can really affect functioning.
Sure. Well, I think there's a grief process that goes with it, right? Because also, like, yes, we have this wonderful child, we're lucky to be able to have a child, experience the life as parents, but also you are kind of grieving the sense of sleep, and you're grieving this time where you could go out and maybe on a Thursday night see your friends after work, just a casual kind of thing, or hang out with some of the couples that, you and your person are friends with, right? And so I think there is a sense of grief that you also go through with that, because it is such a shift.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Grieving some of that independence, especially like I remember when I was like breastfeeding, pumping, whatever, I felt like I was always tied to either my pump or my baby. And I was like, I just want to like be able to just like get up and like go out to the store, go shopping, or go do something by myself for a period of more than like 3 hours and not have to worry about anything. And that independence certainly is something that I remember grieving pretty significantly. But also like, I think definitely in becoming a mother or just a parent in general, there's this experience of having to hold lots of things at the same time, of like holding joy and awe and amazement of having this new life, and also holding this grief and maybe even frustration or guilt or whatever else may show up, being able to hold all of those emotions at once, which can be tricky.
And still also doing the regular tasks that you were already doing before, right? Because life doesn't stop.
Yeah.
So just adding more to the plate. So a lot of the women that I work with experience like those ADHD symptoms that arise due to the hormonal influx and all the things, and also just trying to keep up with everything. And I think, what is it? Postpartum can go for, I think it's up to like 7 years after.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, like there are those hormonal changes, but then also like the brain actually changes. There's more research coming out about that, about how, moms, their brains, I don't know exactly the terminology around that because I'm not a neuroscientist, but the different pathways and the kind of neuroplasticity changes because there are so many new things that moms have to learn, like really being attuned to certain cues of their baby or being able to multitask in different ways. So yeah, like, and those brain changes are lifelong. It's not like, after a period of time, your brain goes back to the way it was. But I'm saying that in terms of like, it's a really cool, like positive thing that the body naturally kind of like adapts to all of these different new aspects of being a mom.
I think also too, one of the things that's not really talked about, and this is more, I guess you could say more the darker sides of postpartum, right, is women who have the suicidal ideation and the things like that. And they're scared, so then they don't talk to nobody. Shut down and isolate her.
Yeah.
I think it comes a lot down to, like OG was saying, you have a child, you're a new mother, you have a child, and you're responsible for that child, and it's nobody prepares you how scary it is, right? Nobody wants to talk about it. So others, she feels alone. She feels like she's on her own to do this, and that's scary. That is scary for a new mother, and it can last for years.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, if we think about like definitely those early first months, there is so much isolation. Like you're getting up in the middle of the night when your friends who don't have kids are, either out doing something or they're asleep. And so there's a lot of that like loneliness that can happen, that feeling of isolation. And then it's just so difficult to even just like get out of the house with a little one, that like a lot of times, moms can like withdraw, and we, know where that tends to lead in terms of depressive symptoms, and oftentimes that can, increase suicidal ideation at some point. But also I work with a lot of moms with OCD during pregnancy and postpartum. And a lot of times they might have intrusive thoughts of like, harming themselves or harming their baby. And these are very different than thoughts associated with like postpartum psychosis, because postpartum OCD, they're, so terrified of the thoughts and terrified that they could harm themselves or someone else, that it creates so much distress. But there's a lot of stigma and fear about like, if I share these thoughts, is my baby going to get taken away? Or, are people going to think that I'm a bad mom? Or they oftentimes already think that they're a bad mom for having those thoughts. But I think,
or is it normal, right? Too, like this can't be normal, right? Because I'm having these thoughts about harming my child, so it can't be.
Right. And then when you don't hear anybody else talking about, oh yeah, like I've had those thoughts too, then you start to feel like, okay, well, there's just something wrong with me. And that doesn't lead down a hopeful or healthy road. But yeah, I mean, I think in terms of like suicidal thoughts, of course, hormones can play to a degree like a role in postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis. But ultimately, a lot of that isolation that comes with new motherhood. Also, again, going back to those expectations that
Right.
maybe we have for the type of mom that we want to be or the type of birth that we wanted to have, expectations just from society around, again, like what a good mom is or isn't. And it's like, okay, if you can't, make this one holiday super magical, then what does that mean about you as a mom? Well, it really doesn't mean anything, but it can be really easy when you're in that vulnerable space to start to internalize, like, I'm not doing a good job. I'm not a good enough mom.
You're in a susceptible place.
Definitely the expectation of that you thought of before becoming a mom and the expectation of after being a mom is not the same reality.
No.
So it's like, okay, I thought I was gonna be like this, but
Mhm.
it went left and just
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. There's literally, my husband and I used to joke, we got a puppy, before we had kids, and we're like, oh, this will be like great for like preparing us to be parents. And maybe to a degree, but like it didn't even touch like what it was like to have an actual baby keeping us up and having to care for.
Yeah. Probably long nights of being sleep deprived. I can imagine. Long nights.
And also like not having a supportive spouse would make it difficult too. So having a supportive spouse, it does help, but it all leads back to that support system. Like you have to have some kind of support system, whether it's from like the community that you live in, church, like friends, family, like it all boils down to that, because that's how you can function. Like, I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have my in-laws with us. Like, I would have probably just like been banging my head against the wall. Like, what am I doing? Like, probably being completely lost with everything. But, thank God for like grandparents and things like that exist in our life, people like that exist in our life, because it just makes our life easier, and it also like helps us like grow grow to a better family dynamic, and financially it'll help both of us. Like without them we wouldn't have done or gotten as far as we have. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely socially. I am sure like the Raleigh area isn't just like an anomaly, but a lot of people have been moving further away from like their families and maybe don't have access to some of that family support. Like if family support's there, that is awesome. And that's definitely a great resource to have. But I am noticing a lot of the moms that I work with just like don't have family in the area, or they live in a different state. And so it's really difficult to identify, okay, like how do I build that support system or that village? Because it really does take a village. Like we are not meant to mother or parent in isolation. So I'm really grateful that at least in our community, there are a lot of different places, whether it's like churches or different organizations, like mom groups that have started up to help create that sense of community. That is so important.
Yeah. What would you recommend to our listeners if you have a mom out there who's maybe thinking that they're going through postpartum, they're not sure? What do you recommend?
Yeah. I think regardless, even if they're not sure, like definitely reaching out to, whether it's their, usually you're at the pediatrician very frequently postpartum. So if your baby is still pretty young and going to the pediatrician frequently, really just kind of being honest with like the pediatrician, your own medical providers, as well as Postpartum Support International is a great resource. They have a warm line. It's not a crisis line, but it's a warm line where you can call in, and they have volunteers who can connect you to, providers in the area or resources in the area to either get support or get assessment to see if maybe it could be beneficial to meet with a therapist or psychiatric provider for medication. And they also have a ton of great virtual support groups. So I always recommend that as a resource. But definitely, if they're feeling like something's off or not right, again, communicating that to whoever their support network is, and kind of reaching out or asking their support network to help them reach out if they're already just feeling so overwhelmed or they don't even know where to start.
Yeah, don't let fear prevent you from asking for help. I think a lot of women fear if they ask for help, they're being a bad mom or they're showing other people they're struggling. And, there's nothing wrong with you reaching out to your physician or anything like that, telling them okay, this is what I've been feeling. This is what my thoughts are. And I feel like I'm being a bad mom by having these thoughts or whatever, hurting myself or my child or anything like that. Don't be scared to speak up or reach out for help. Don't suffer in silence.
Yeah.
Side note, what do you recommend for the partners? What do you tell them?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I think kind of Postpartum Support International is a great resource for them as well. There are lots of there's a lot of information on okay, how do I even get help for my significant other? But there are also support groups for partners, dads, non-birthing, partners. But also, I would say if you're noticing that your partner is really just not themselves, if they're having a lot of trouble sleeping even when the baby's sleeping, usually that's a very big thing that I assess for, because sleep is just so important in terms of being able to think clearly and problem solve and regulate our emotions. But if they're noticing that, their partner is just really not themselves, or if they notice that their partner is saying I just don't feel like myself, or I can't stop crying, or I put the baby down, but then I'm not sleeping at night, I'm checking the monitor every 5 minutes, they can certainly, I would encourage them to talk to their partners and say, I'm concerned. But then also, if they happen to have the information for any of the medical providers, OBs, pediatricians, even just encouraging their partner, saying I'll help you make the appointment, I'll go with you and take you to the appointment to just kind of see if there's some extra support that we can get for you.
Sure. So how can any of our listeners maybe reach out to you if they want to get in touch with you, or maybe want to come see you as a provider?
Yeah, so I have a website, www.megandavispsychotherapy.com, and that has my information for kind of my different specialties, my approach, and it has a form if anybody's interested in reaching out and working with me. They can go there. And then also I'm on Instagram, and that is at Megan Davis Psychotherapy. Super original, I know. And that also has my website information there as well.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you guys heard it from Miss Megan Davis. We are so happy that you came in and spoke to us today at the Fill and Spill podcast. You know, guys, if you have any questions, comments, please leave your comments and questions down below. And thank you all, and see y'all later. Bye.
Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, fill it up, spill it out.